Softness is not weakness. Before we start, I want you to answer one question honestly. When was the last time you truly felt safe? Not physically, emotionally. When was the last time you felt safe enough to rest without guilt? Safe enough to ask for help? Safe enough to cry? Safe enough to stop carrying everything alone? For many women, it's been years. Some women have spent so much of their lives surviving that they no longer know how to soften. They don't know how to receive. They don't know how to trust. They don't know how to rest. And eventually, being exhausted becomes their personality. Being independent becomes their identity. Being needed by everyone becomes their purpose. But deep down, they're tired. Tired of being strong all the time. Tired of pretending they don't need love. Tired of acting like nothing affects them. If that sounds familiar, this conversation is for you. Because today we're talking about why softness is not weakness, why receiving help doesn't make you dependent, why healing doesn't make you fragile, and why becoming softer may be the strongest thing you'll ever do. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's begin. There are so many women walking around pretending they are okay, pretending they don't need help, pretending they don't crave softness, pretending they don't want to be held, understood, protected, loved, or emotionally safe. Because somewhere along the way, they learned that needing anything made them weak. So they became hard. Hard emotionally, hard mentally, hard in relationships, hard with themselves. And honestly, a lot of women are exhausted, not because they are weak, but because they've been surviving for too long. Welcome to Her Soft Era. Today we're talking about something deeply personal. Why so many women become hard, how softness changes your life, how to receive without guilt, how to stop living in survival mode, and how to return to the version of yourself that life may have forced you to abandon. Because this conversation is not about dependency, it's about emotional balance. A woman can be soft and still have boundaries. She can receive and still have standards. She can be feminine and still be powerful. But before we talk about becoming soft, we need to understand why so many women became hard in the first place. A lot of women were not born emotionally hard. Life made them that way. Maybe she grew up feeling emotionally neglected. Maybe she had to become the strong one too early. Maybe she watched everyone around her struggle and learned that vulnerability was dangerous. Maybe she loved people who constantly disappointed her. Maybe she gave everything she had and received very little in return. Maybe she learned that softness attracted pain. So she adapted. She stopped asking for help, stopped trusting easily, stopped expressing her emotions, stopped expecting people to show up for her, and eventually, she convinced herself that she didn't need anyone. But deep down, most hard women are not emotionless. They're exhausted. Sometimes a woman says, I don't need anybody. But what she really means is, I'm afraid of being disappointed again. And that's an important difference. Because survival mode often disguises itself as strength. But surviving and thriving are not the same thing. A woman in survival mode is always preparing for the next problem, always carrying everything herself, always expecting something to go wrong. Imagine a woman named Sarah. Sarah works hard, pays her own bills, handles every problem herself, never asks for help, never lets anyone see her struggle. Everyone calls her strong, everyone admires her independence. But every night, Sarah goes to bed exhausted. Not because she's weak, but because she has convinced herself that she must carry the entire world alone. And there are so many women living exactly like that. They are praised for their strength while secretly drowning under the weight of it. The truth is, strength is beautiful, but so is softness. And one of the biggest lies women have been taught is that they must choose between the two. You don't. You can be strong and soft, independent and supported, successful and rested, ambitious and feminine. The strongest women are not always the hardest women. Sometimes the strongest women are the ones who finally allow themselves to receive. Is it wrong to let a man help you? One of the biggest struggles many women face today is learning how to receive, especially women who have spent years doing everything themselves. Women who learned that asking for help was dangerous. Women who learned that depending on anyone meant risking disappointment. Women who learned that if they wanted something done properly, they had to do it themselves. So when a man offers help, they become uncomfortable. Not because they don't need support, but because support feels unfamiliar. And what is unfamiliar often feels unsafe. Maybe you've experienced this yourself. A man offers to carry something heavy, and your first instinct is, no, I've got it. A man offers to pay for dinner, and suddenly you feel guilty. A man offers emotional support, and instead of accepting it, you tell him you're fine, even when you're not. Why? Because somewhere along the way, you started believing that receiving made you weak. But let's talk honestly. There is a huge difference between receiving and depending. Receiving says, I appreciate your kindness. Dependency says, I cannot function without you. Those are not the same thing, not even close. Imagine this scenario. You've had a difficult week. Work has been stressful, your energy is low, you've barely had time to take care of yourself. A man you've been dating notices. Without being asked, he sends dinner to your house. No pressure, no manipulation, no expectation, just kindness. Many women immediately become uncomfortable. They start thinking, what does he want? What do I owe him now? Is this a trap? And while caution is healthy, sometimes that reaction comes from old wounds rather than present reality. Because healthy people do kind things. Healthy people care. Healthy people support. Healthy people give without expecting ownership. And learning to receive healthy treatment is part of healing. Now let's be clear. Not every act of generosity is genuine. Some people use gifts as leverage. Some people give in order to control. Some people offer support because they expect access to your body, time, or emotional energy. That is not generosity. That is manipulation. And softness does not mean ignoring red flags. A soft woman still has discernment. She still pays attention. She still protects herself. But she also doesn't punish healthy people for what unhealthy people did. That's important. Because sometimes women become so protective that they reject good treatment along with bad treatment. And that creates loneliness, not safety. Let's look at another scenario. A woman has spent years taking care of herself. She's proud of her independence. One day she meets a man who is thoughtful, consistent, respectful. He enjoys helping her, not because he sees her as incapable, but because he cares. And every time he tries to do something kind, she rejects it, not because she wants to, because she doesn't know how to receive. Eventually, the relationship becomes exhausting, not because the man is bad, but because she has built her identity around never needing anyone. And that's where many women get stuck. They confuse independence with isolation, but they are not the same thing. True independence means I can take care of myself. Isolation says I must take care of myself alone. There is a difference, a very important difference, because human beings were never meant to do life completely alone. We all need support. We all need connection. We all need care. The healthiest women understand this. They know they are capable, but they also know they don't have to carry everything by themselves. And honestly, that kind of confidence is beautiful. A woman who can receive without guilt. A woman who can accept kindness without feeling indebted. A woman who knows her worth regardless of what anyone gives her. That's powerful. Now let's talk about money. Because this is where many women become conflicted. If a man offers to pay for dinner, is it okay to let at him? Yes. If you genuinely want to, if it feels respectful, if there are no unhealthy expectations attached. Allowing someone to pay for dinner does not make you weak. Allowing someone to buy you flowers does not make you weak. Allowing someone to treat you kindly does not make you weak. What matters is your mindset. Because healthy receiving comes from self-worth, not entitlement. A soft woman appreciates generosity, but she doesn't believe she owes access to herself because someone spent money on her. Her standards remain intact. Her boundaries remain intact. Her self-respect remains intact. And that's what makes the difference. The goal is not to become dependent. The goal is to become open. Open to support. Open to kindness. Open to healthy love. Because one of the saddest things life can do to a woman is convince her that she must reject love in order to stay safe. And healing is often the process of learning that not everyone is trying to hurt you. Not everyone is trying to use you. Not everyone is trying to take from you. Some people genuinely want to give. Some people genuinely care. Some people genuinely enjoy making your life easier. And allowing yourself to receive that without guilt, without fear, without shame, is one of the most feminine things you can learn. Because softness is not about needing rescue. It's about allowing yourself to experience support. And there's a beautiful difference between the two. When you think you need a man, but what you really need is something else. Let's talk about something that many women think about, but few women talk about honestly: loneliness. Not the kind of loneliness where you're physically alone, the kind where you're surrounded by people but still feel emotionally disconnected, the kind that makes you crave affection, the kind that makes you wish someone would hold you, the kind that makes you wonder if having a relationship would finally make everything feel better. And honestly, many women spend years believing that what they need is a man, when sometimes what they really need is emotional nourishment. Let's imagine something. It's 11 p.m. You've had a stressful day. Maybe work was overwhelming. Maybe life feels uncertain. Maybe you've been carrying emotional pain that nobody knows about. You're lying in bed, scrolling, thinking, feeling empty, and suddenly you start craving intimacy. You want someone beside you, someone to cuddle, someone to talk to, someone to make you feel wanted. And in that moment, it can feel like a relationship is the answer. But here's something important. Sometimes the urge isn't about romance. Sometimes it's about regulation. Your nervous system is tired, your heart is tired, your emotions are tired, and your body is looking for comfort. The problem is, many people try to solve emotional hunger with romantic attention, and those aren't always the same thing. Because attention can temporarily distract loneliness, but it doesn't always heal it. That's why some women enter relationships and still feel lonely, because what they truly needed wasn't a boyfriend. They needed emotional safety. They needed healing. They needed connection. They needed themselves. And that's an important distinction, because if you don't understand your needs, you can spend years chasing the wrong solution. Let's talk about urges, because this is normal. Women have emotional needs, physical needs, affection needs, connection needs. There is nothing wrong with that. You're human. You're not supposed to be a robot. You're not supposed to pretend that you never crave closeness. But emotional maturity means learning to understand what you're actually craving. For example, sometimes a woman thinks, I need a man. But what she really needs is a good cry, a long conversation, a hug, rest, reassurance, healing, friendship, emotional support. And once she gives herself those things, the overwhelming craving often decreases. Not because she stopped wanting love, but because she stopped trying to use love as emotional first aid. Now let's talk about touch starvation, because this is real. Human beings are designed for connection. Many women go months, sometimes years, without healthy affection, without hugs, without physical comfort, without feeling emotionally safe enough to relax. And eventually, their nervous system starts craving connection. This doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means you're human. Sometimes women judge themselves for wanting affection, but affection is not weakness. Connection is not weakness. Needing comfort is not weakness. The key is learning healthy ways to meet those needs. Which brings us to an important question. Is it okay to cuddle your female friends? Honestly, for many women, healthy affection between trusted friends can be incredibly healing. A genuine hug, leaning on a friend's shoulder while talking, being emotionally vulnerable with safe people. These things matter a lot, because intimacy is not only romantic. Intimacy is emotional closeness, feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling accepted, feeling safe, and healthy friendships can provide many of those things. Now, of course, everyone has different comfort levels, and boundaries matter. But there is nothing unhealthy about seeking comfort from trusted friendships. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes many women make is expecting one romantic partner to meet every emotional need. That creates pressure and often disappointment. The healthiest women build multiple sources of connection: friendships, family, community, spiritual connection, purpose, self love. And eventually, romantic love becomes a beautiful addition to life, not the entire foundation of it. Let's talk about another scenario. A woman feels lonely. Instead of sitting with her emotions, she immediately downloads dating apps, starts entertaining people she doesn't even like, responds to messages that don't excite her, accepts attention that doesn't align with her standards. Why? Because loneliness feels uncomfortable. But loneliness is not always a sign that you need a relationship. Sometimes loneliness is simply an invitation, an invitation to reconnect with yourself, to build deeper friendships, to create a life you enjoy, to heal wounds you've been avoiding, to become emotionally available to yourself. Because one of the most powerful things a woman can learn is how to comfort herself, not abandon herself, not distract herself, not numb herself. Comfort herself the way you would comfort someone you love, with patience, with kindness, with compassion. Because healing often begins when you stop running from your feelings and start listening to them. And honestly, many women are not craving a man. They're craving softness. They're craving peace. They're craving emotional safety. They're craving a life that feels gentle to live in. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to wait for a relationship to start creating that. You can begin today by becoming a safe place for yourself, by surrounding yourself with people who genuinely care, by allowing yourself to receive affection in healthy ways, by nurturing your emotional needs without shame, because your softness deserves attention too. And the more emotionally nourished you become, the less desperate you'll feel for validation, the less likely you'll be to settle, the less likely you'll confuse attention for love, and the more likely you'll recognize healthy relationships when they finally arrive. Because a woman who understands her needs is much harder to manipulate and much easier to love. We'll continue in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads.